Good afternoon and welcome to St Peter Mancroft on this fairly chilly Wednesday afternoon. My name is Naomi Tuma. I'm the curate here at Mancroft, and I will be just sharing a few thoughts over the next few minutes about a current issue that is going on in the news. Welcome to those who are watching online and to those who are in the building today. I wonder whether you saw over the Christmas holidays the Mr. Bates versus the post office drama. If you weren't already aware of the post office scandal, then that Christmas special, a series of TV dramas, will have made you aware of it. It has made front page news and it deserves our attention. Rather than being called a post office scandal, it should really be called a post office miscarriage of justice. One of the newspapers writing about the series describes some of the people caught up in the scandal. A young Surrey mum jailed when she was 8 weeks pregnant with her second child. An innocent Hampshire grandmother who felt she had no choice but to plead guilty to false accounting. A cricket-loving father of two who ended his own life after being wrongly accused of theft. The newspaper article goes on to say that these are just some of the tragic stories of more than 700 postmasters who were convicted of crimes related to the Post Office's faulty Horizons IT systems between 1998 and 2015. And it's shocking, isn't it, that so many people could have been victims to this miscarriage of justice over such a long period of time. It's been described as one of the most widespread miscarriages of justice in British history, so we should sit up and pay attention. And not only that, but it has been being addressed in some way or another since at least 2002, when the discrepancies began to be noticed. And yet it's taken a TV programme to really make the government sit up and take notice. The government is now proposing new legislation to clear those who've been wrongly convicted. So I have a few questions. Don't necessarily have the answers for them, but I do have a few questions. Why did it take a television programme to push the government into action? Why did it take a television drama? Not the first one either. There's been a panorama programme, there's been newspaper reports, there's been interviews, there's been investigations. Why is it only now, as a result of a TV drama, that the government is finally taking some serious action? But I guess that leads on to the second question, which, why are our courts so underfunded that the government is looking at legislation to exonerate the claimants rather than processing them individually through the courts like they ought to have been processed individually through the courts? Why is it taking blanket legislation? Why are our courts not funded enough that they can manage these claims? And some bigger questions. Where is the justice in this? Where is the justice for those people who've lost everything? Where is the justice for those people who've lost their lives? And what does my faith say about this? Well, it seems to me, as I reflect on this, that the Church has grown wary of speaking of a God of justice or of a God who judges. A God who sees right and wrong, maybe even a God who punishes those who are wrong. I suspect that given the Church's propensity over history for making bad judgments, it's maybe not a terrible thing that the Church has stopped talking about God as a God of judgment, but I think it does leave a bit of a gap in our understanding of who God is. Because if God is not a God of judgment, What happens when our human justice systems fail? Is that the end of judgment if our own human justice systems fail? And God is described throughout the Bible as a God of judgment. You just can't really get away from it. So one example is in Psalm 9, which describes God like this: "The Lord sits enthroned forever. He has established his throne for judgment. He judges the world with righteousness, and he judges the people with equity." A key characteristic of who God is that he's a God who judges, who makes decisions about what is right and what is wrong. But this psalm also goes on to make clear that God's judgment is not weighted on the side of the establishment or of the powerful, as it looks like our human justice system has been weighted. God's judgment is truly just, truly fair, or maybe even, don't want to say it too loudly, but it might be even slightly weighted towards the poor and the oppressed. Because the psalm goes on to say, "The Lord is a stronghold for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. And those who know God's name put their trust in him. For you, O Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you." So if God's kingdom was established on earth, those innocent postmasters, they would be judged fairly, they would be cleared, and they would have recompense. And that is all we want, isn't it? A fair system, a true system. Well, it is kind of. But then I think, what about the things I am guilty of? I don't really want justice for those things. Every Sunday at church, we say the confession. And we confess that we have done things wrong deliberately. We confess that we've done things wrong accidentally. And we confess that there's things that we should have done, but we didn't do. And I'd really rather not be judged for those things, however small or even however significant they are. And that's where a verse from the New Testament talking about Jesus comes in. So this verse says, "Jesus commanded us to preach to the people and to testify that he is the one ordained by God as judge of the living and the dead." So they are saying Jesus is the judge. All the prophets testify about him, that everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name. Well, that's a relief, isn't it? Believing in Jesus means that he forgives me. So God is both the judge who judges faithfully and fairly. There are no miscarriages of justice with God. Oh, except the one where God himself experienced a miscarriage of justice. Except the one where Jesus experienced a miscarriage of justice, where he was sentenced to death as a result of a dodgy trial with flawed evidence. So we've got the God who is the God of justice, but also a God who is experienced injustice. We worship a God who is the ultimate judge, but also who knows what it's like to experience injustice. We worship a God who provides justice for the innocent, for the weak and the oppressed, but also a God who forgives our sins when we turn to him. We experience injustice in this life, but we can look to an eternity where there is both justice and forgiveness. And that seems like good news to me.